House of the Dragon admits the biggest lie in Targaryen history. House Targaryen. For centuries, this family of dragon lords has captured imaginations with their legacy of fire and blood. Kings and queens, dragons and warriors, dynasties and civil wars. House Targaryen is synonymous with power and ambition. But what if everything we thought we knew about the Targaryens was a lie? What if the history that has been celebrated, taught, and revered for generations was deliberately twisted to hide a truth too dangerous to reveal? House of the Dragon, the prequel series that takes us back to the height of Targaryen power during the Dance of the Dragons, has dropped hints that may finally expose the biggest lie in Targaryen history. A lie that reshapes how we view kingship, succession, dragons, and the very foundation of Westeros itself. In this video, we'll explore what that lie is, why it was kept secret for so long, and how the revelation changes the story of House Targaryen forever. To understand the lie, we first need to revisit the legend. The Targaryens are descended from Valyria, a civilization of dragon lords and sorcerers that ruled much of Essos. When the doom of Valyria destroyed the continent, the Targaryens survived, taking their dragons and settling in Dragonstone. They claimed to be the rightful rulers of Westeros, with a bloodline strengthened by centuries of incestuous marriage to preserve their dragon bond and magical heritage. Every child, every succession dispute, every war, all of it is tied to the notion that the Targaryens are destined, chosen, and exceptional. This legend has been reinforced by generations of historians, maesters, and storytellers. It's the foundation of their power. The belief that their right to rule is unquestionable, their bloodline sacred, and their dragons proof of divine favor. But as House of the Dragon begins to reveal, not all of this is true. According to the Targaryens, their Valyrian heritage is pure, unbroken, and powerful. They are dragons incarnate, bound by magic and destiny. Their rule over Westeros is a natural extension of this power. In truth, House of the Dragon begins to suggest cracks in this story. The show emphasizes the human conflicts, secrets, and betrayals that undermine the myth of Targaryen perfection. Behind the dragon fire and golden hair lies ambition, manipulation, and, most importantly, a carefully constructed narrative designed to protect the throne. The biggest lie? That Targaryens were always destined to rule Westeros, and that their bloodline was untouchably pure. The Dance of the Dragons is the perfect example of this lie in action. On the surface, it's a story of two Targaryen claimants, Rhaenyra, the daughter of Viserys I, and Aegon II, her half-brother. It's about succession, inheritance, and the right to rule. The Targaryen narrative frames it as a civil war over legitimacy. Rhaenyra's claim was contested because she was a woman, and Westeros could not accept a queen. But House of the Dragon reveals another layer. The civil war was fueled not by gender alone, but by lies about parentage, betrayal, and manipulation. The legitimacy of claimants was carefully manufactured by advisors, courtiers, and even the Targaryens themselves to control perception. The supposed moral high ground of certain characters is a facade masking ambition and deceit. This war, celebrated as a Targaryen tragedy, was built on a lie, that the throne was bound to destiny, rather than the ruthless maneuvering of those who control the narrative. Maesters have historically been the keepers of knowledge in Westeros. They chronicle history, advise kings, and preserve the truth. But as House of the Dragon exposes, even they participated in hiding critical facts. Records were altered to favor certain claimants. Histories of dragons and their riders were sanitized. Incestuous or politically inconvenient details were omitted. The biggest lie of all? That the Targaryen line was as pure and noble as it claimed. In reality, behind closed doors, marriages were manipulated, heirs were questioned, and legitimacy was a matter of convenience, not destiny. By controlling the narrative, the Targaryens, and those who wrote their histories, ensured that the world saw the dynasty as flawless, powerful, and ordained by fate. One of the most shocking revelations suggested by House of the Dragon is the existence of secret bloodlines that were deliberately concealed. Children born out of hidden unions were sometimes passed off as legitimate heirs. Rival claimants were discredited through misinformation. Some Targaryen children, whose legitimacy could challenge the throne, were quietly removed from succession. This manipulation undermines the foundational Targaryen claim that power flowed from blood and destiny. Instead, it flowed from deception, secrecy, and strategic violence. The show hints that many Targaryens who appear to be rightful heirs were, in fact, the product of political expediency rather than true lineage. The very notion of pure Targaryen blood becomes a constructed myth. The Targaryens have long claimed that Westeros rejected Rhaenyra because she was a woman. This was framed as a societal failure, a tragedy for the dynasty. But House of the Dragon suggests another truth. The opposition to Rhaenyra's rule was as much about political maneuvering and fear of losing power as about her gender. Many who claimed to defend male succession were acting out of personal ambition. Advisors and courtiers exploited the pretense of gendered norms to manipulate the succession. In other words, the story that Westeros cannot accept a female ruler is partially a lie, a convenient explanation for what was actually a ruthless struggle for control. Dragons are the most powerful symbols of Targaryen authority. They are said to make kings unassailable, armies unbeatable, and dynasties invincible. Yet, House of the Dragon reveals the truth. Dragons do not guarantee control. They amplify human flaws. Dragons are weapons, but they are also unpredictable and dangerous to their riders. The deaths of dragons, and the Targaryens who rode them, often cause chaos rather than maintaining order. The supposed magical inevitability of Targaryen rule is undermined every time a dragon dies or a rider fails. The lie is clear. Dragons alone did not make Targaryens unstoppable. They made their ambitions visible, their mistakes catastrophic, and their vulnerabilities exposed. House of the Dragon hints at the most pivotal lie. The Targaryens orchestrated parts of the Dance of the Dragons to consolidate power. Certain deaths were allowed or even facilitated to ensure a desired succession outcome. Propaganda and rumor were used to manipulate allies and enemies alike. The narrative of heroism, loyalty, and tragedy was crafted to justify the dynasty's choices. In other words, the Dance of the Dragons was not just a civil war. It was a carefully controlled performance, designed to maintain the illusion of Targaryen destiny while eliminating threats and rivals. This lie reshapes history. What we thought of as a tragic, uncontrollable war was, in part, a deliberate strategy of deception. The ramifications of this lie extend far beyond the Targaryens themselves. Westeros grew unstable because political decisions were based on false perceptions of legitimacy. Key families made alliances, wars, and marriages believing in a constructed narrative. The illusion of Targaryen perfection masked human flaws, leading to miscalculations, rebellions, and the eventual decline of the dynasty.